Dark World shakes things up with another regional top 8, and don't worry, for hires here as well, but not in the top. Don't beg the 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. We have the Houston Regional Breakdown, 560-ish players for this. Indy actually beat out this regional with 623, I believe, after the weekend. So this was the second biggest regional out of the block, which is mind-boggling, but actually awesome. Highest represented deck was actually 3 Kashtira in this event. So when we start looking at the breakdown here of the deck list, you're going to see some interesting little takes here for, I guess, the developments for this deck. Yeah, I love evenly matched, getting the chance to help out Kashtira. We also had an Evil Twin Sprite, so Sprite variants are starting to see some level of cool innovation here as well. Now, we also had MathMech showcasing its way on in to the top cut here, which is actually pretty interesting to say the least here. You also have the overall potential for Drytron, which is actually kind of interesting to see that worked itself out here. Drytron, a lot of good duelists here are believing in the potential for this deck, which is actually kind of interesting overall to see that this is still sticking around like as a deck. But I mean, with Bysteel's not running around, it's not surprising to see that we are seeing, you know, that return back to the playing field here for this. We also had Plunder Patrol. Now, I didn't mention this previously, but I think that it's actually pretty cool to see that both Dark World and Plunder Patrol could tear through a subpar 600-man regional here, and that's very, very impressive. And then, of course, you had one Dark World deck here in your top cut. Is this Rogue actually running it back and showcasing that they can actually do something? Quite possibly, honestly. The fact that 2-3 big Rogue decks did well. Amazing. Let's pass on over to these top deck lists. Alright, winning the event here is our Kashtira deck, sporting off Triple Book of Eclipse, Triple Book of Moon, and Triple Lance. I feel like we've seen the particulars of this list before, where you do see players filtering through the power cards here as defensive options to allow this deck, you know, the chance to kind of sit up. And yes, that is evenly matched here, showcasing some incredibly amazing power in this format. The fact that the fact that this card just tears through your Rogue matchups and puts this deck so far ahead in certain matchups is actually kind of incredible. So that's one really big thing that I do want to point out here, is just this card has turned into an absolute monster for this. I do see that we are playing the one Goliath down here. See a lot of lists that just have been opting not to play Goliath. Perfectly understandable, but as you can see that there is a lot of overall potential here still for this deck. I mean, it is overall the best deck in the room, right? Alright, next up here, we actually have, oh boy, more Kashtira. Man, this deck just went the full mile for this event too. Now this list is opting to side the Evenlies, and that's not particularly a bad thing. As long as you do have access to them in some capacity, you'll be fine. We're actually seeing Harpy's Feather Duster. Okay, I like what I'm seeing here. I also see that we have Book of Eclipses, your Triple Forbidden Lances here, which, once again, your defensive options, you love to see them. We are playing one of these. I'm used to seeing 2 copies of the Scareclaw because the negate effect is incredibly powerful. And we did opt to play Effect Veilers here as stunning option cards to keep the opponent down. So, okay. Very, very interesting to see the choices in between the variations here. And then our dear friend Goliath down here, still showcasing that we can get places here. Outside of that, everything still feels incredibly standard for this deck. So, good stuff, at least in terms of your developments, yet again. Next up here, more Kashtira. How many? First, second, and third were all Kashtira. Oh, that's, I guess you get the boring stuff out of the way, right? Triple book, your double book, and of course all of your lances. Once again, this list siding the Evenlies down here, but this right here, this is the goo. The fact that people have been wanting to see Gamma Seal and any sort of kaiju return back into the format here as like a deterrence to punishing the opponent, this is actually what you want to see here. The fact that the turtle actually can punish your opponent. Rise Heart Pass, okay, here, go ahead and take this turtle. All right, cool. Well, your deck is now effectively done at the end of the day. It just edges out the mirror incredibly easier. Outside of that, once again, all the cashier decks feel very much the same at the end of the day, but that's not a bad thing. All right, I just want to throw that out there. All right, so interesting. Next up here is Plunder Patrol. Zalm the Dark Palace. When you control a monster equipped with the Noble Arms of Light, your opponent can, once per turn, win an adventure token and destroys an opponent's monster by battling. Inflict damage to your opponent equal destroyed monster's original attack. And then once per turn, during your main phase, if the previous effect was activated, add one field spell that mentions adventure token or deck to your hand. Just playing this to poke for damage, right? That's actually kind of cute. I like what we're doing with this. Kind of interesting, actually. So, I mean, you're already playing your adventure package with this, but this is going to allow you to kind of, I guess, clear up or pressure your opponent a little bit more. And that's kind of what you want to see in a deck like this, is just more aggression being able to be slotted towards your opponent. So I guess the more tech choices and the more aggro you can pressure onto your opponent, typically the easier that it will be. Next up here, we have Dark World. Of course, standard danger package. Still maximizing on Triple Nessie. One big thing I will say here that I think looks pretty cool here is the fact that we are playing double Bigfoot. I think a lot of the variants that we've seen more recently, we're just kind of focusing on one Bigfoot. I'll have to double check with that, but I'm pretty sure we've only seen one Bigfoot up to this point. So the extra one here actually can get some damage done. We are playing Radion here, so you will have access to a Dark Kaiju. Actually, having access to any sort of Kaiju right now is really, really good. The amount of damage that you can do to your opponent just by being able to deploy a Kaiju onto their field will set you so much further ahead in terms of your game plan that it's incredibly good. So I do like that. Outside of that, 41 is fine for this deck. I do like the fact we are taking access to talents here, so that's actually kind of nice. Next up here, we have Drytron. Sporting off the Kurikaras. All right. So this is one of the other lists that I've seen in this format here, that we've been taking advantage of the Kurikara here to kind of punish the opponent. Now, your opponent's going to probably, go through some of your negates here on some of these effects, because they're not going to want to bend 10 to resolve. Because typically if these effects resolve, you get to kind of go much further ahead in terms of advantage. And once you kind of start spinning the wheels on the plus train, your opponent's going to start seeing some issues here. And I don't think that they necessarily want to get too far behind, even though, it seems like they might. And of course, the Magician of Black Chaos Max card is incredibly powerful, even still to this point in time. Outside of that, list does feel a little bit standard. We are playing the Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon. Well, that's kind of cute. All right, good stuff. Next up is our Math Mech deck here. Now, overall, the game plan for Math Mech is still the same, build up the access code talker OTK to punish the opponent, run through your superfactorial / your equation for your extensions, and then of course you have Lancy as 4 defensive options, and then we have the Archfiend Eccentric as a small world bridge for this deck. And of course, this build opted to play double Peril Exceed instead of 3, which is fine. See that we are citing the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli down here as well, and we are citing triple Thunder King Kaiju as well, small world bridge applications here. All right, that's one of the big things for this. And we are actually citing the Induction down here. I know a lot of people kind of skipped out on wanting to play Induction as a late, but I still think that the card is incredibly good, to say the least. So everything looks, once again, pretty straightforward. I like what we're seeing here. I'm loving the fact that we have so much diverse decks in the format. Now, 28th place down here. This is for Higher Runic. When I got sent this, I was like, no way, this actually worked. Because, I mean, most of the builds will try to incorporate maybe a little sprite package into this. No, this actually worked out here. Did manage to lock down its invite. I mean, you're still in a tournament of 500 people, and you still managed to get top 28 with this. That's still amazing at the end of the day. So you got to really consider, your value trees and, the best value that you're going to get out of your decks here. And this is going to be one of your primary examples of, hey, I opted to play something a little bit more fun, but we have a very strong base engine here to this deck. So you will be pulling off a majority of the successful combos that make this deck good. Also, Raphael getting free excavation for, however many of the squad mates that you have here. Incredible. So good stuff with this. I'm very happy to see this. Then we also have a Labyrinth deck that got top 64 here as well. Now, I mean, the particulars of Labyrinth isn't anything too crazy. We did opt to play the Cuckoo Clock as the one of, which is fine. I do see that we did play the Deus Ex Machina, but we didn't play any way to step into it. I feel like a lot of the resources down here for this just weren't anything too particularly crazy. We played the one destructive Daruma Cannon. All right. Outside of that, everything here feels pretty straightforward. I like what we're seeing here. So what do you guys think about these deck list for this event? Please, comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I will see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.